Average waiting time for the same three processes but with different arriving order is now 3. So which one is better? The smaller waiting time. So this picture is much better as compared to this picture. We want to maximize CPU utilization, maximize throughput, minimize turnaround time, minimize waiting time, and minimize response time. For doing all of this at the same time is utilizing a good CPU scheduling algorithm. So we have a number of algorithms and we want to make an algorithm which is best and it works best for us. The first one is the most obvious choice, which is actually we can say that it's an absence of an algorithm, because this algorithm is simply saying that whenever a process is submitted to the ready queue, you simply enqueue it in the last of the line, and as its turn arrives, you service or send it to CPU. So this is called first come first serve. The process which came earliest will be given chance first. So for example, this is a table which was made by the operating system. Whenever a process came into the ready queue, whenever a process started requesting CPU, the operating system simply added it to this table. So the first one was P1, it was added to the table. Second one was P2, it was added to the table. Third one came, the process was P3, it was added to the table. And all of these burst times, what are these burst times? These burst times are the amount of time this process wants to run into the CPU. So you may get this question immediately in your mind that the process is right now arriving. How can we tell that how much time it wants to stay in the CPU? So that is the big question. But for now, we're going to assume that we somehow magically know that all of these processes have these requirements or these different amounts of time that they want to spend into the CPU. This is beforehand. So they are not sent to the CPU right now. They will be sent to the CPU, but beforehand we know how much time they want to stay in the CPU. So suppose that the process arrives in order. For example, P1 was the first to arrive, P2 was the second to arrive, P3 was the third to arrive. So how are we going to send them to CPU? We are going to select the first one out of these three and we are going to send it to CPU. So at time 0, the first process that arrived the first, which was P1, we sent it to CPU. So this picture, this graph, which is called a Gantt chart, it is made based on a timeline. So this axis shows the time and this axis simply shows the process. So process P1 was sent at time 0, and how much time process P1 wanted to stay inside the CPU? 24. So naturally it used 24 seconds of CPU, and as soon as it was done, we sent the second process into the CPU, which was P2. Because P2 arrived second, we sent it second on the second term. So P2 took how much time? 3 seconds. So 24 plus 3 is 27. Similarly, after both of these two processes were done using the CPU, we selected the third process that came after these two and we sent it to CPU. And the third process hoped to get 3 seconds and it got 3 seconds. And 27 plus 3 would be 30. So P3 started at 27 and ended at 30. So this was the Gantt chart, total CPU timeline for all these processes. As the processes arrive into the ready queue, or in other words, they're submitted to the operating system for execution and the CPU, we simply select them in the same order and send them to CPU. So now there is the big question. What was the waiting time for each process? By the way, we are assuming that all these processes with a very tiny time difference, they all arrived at t equal to 0. So this is one assumption that we are making, that this table was available to us at t equal to 0 and this order was already made. So you can assume that, for example, the time it takes for an entry in the table to make is like 0.01 nanoseconds, and with this tiny amount of time difference, all of this table was made, but every next instruction is executed after like 1 nanosecond. So we have assumed that the table was available to us at t equal to 0. So the order was there, P1, P2, P3, these were all in order. So if the table, or in other words, all the processes were available at t equal to 0, that means the calculation of waiting time for each process is going to begin at t equal to 0, right? So we have to calculate the waiting time. So P1 arrived at t equal to 0. How much time did it have to wait from its arrival to its going into the CPU? So the answer to that would be 0. No time waiting. So P1 didn't have to wait any time. It didn't have to wait for the CPU. P2 arrived at t equal to 0, but it was sent to the CPU at time 24. So P2 had to wait 24 time units. Similarly, P3 arrived at t equal to 0 and P3 was sent to CPU at t equal to 27. So these are all three individual waiting times for all these three processes, and on average the waiting time for all these three processes is 17. So this is one situation where, as I said earlier, that we can say that this is a lack of an algorithm instead of just an algorithm. So FCFS is just selecting the processes based on their order of arrival, and then we're sending them in the same order to CPU. But what would happen if the arrival order was different? For example, this table was made in such a way that this P1 was not here and this P1 was here. All of this line was shifted to this point. So what would we do? We would simply select the first process that arrives, which is P2, and we would send it to CPU. So P2 is sent to CPU at t equal to 0. Then P3 came, so P3 was sent to CPU here at third second. It took 3 seconds and it ended at 6 seconds. And after that, we are assuming that P1 came. P1 was last to come and it was expected to use 24 time units. And P1, starting from 6, took 24 time units and ended at 30. So the final time for all these processes earlier was 30 and now it is still 30. There is no change in that. But what happens to the waiting times? The waiting time for first process P1 is now 6 time unit. It came at 0, but it was sent to CPU at 6. Similarly, P2, the waiting time for P2 is 0 because it was sent to CPU at 0. The waiting time for P3 was, it came at 0, but it was sent to CPU at 3. So P3 is equal to 3. So the average waiting time for all these processes in this given scenario would be all these added divided by 3 is equal to 3. So now we would like to compare the average waiting times of both the pictures. The first picture says that average waiting time for the same three processes is 17, but the second picture says that the average waiting time for the same three processes but with different arriving order is now 3. So which one is better? The smaller waiting time. So this picture is much better as compared to this picture. We wouldn't want this picture if we were using the first come first serve CPU scheduling algorithm. So the answer to that is, or the comment on this would be that this is not in our control. This could happen. There was a good probability that this could happen, and there was a good probability that this could happen. So we did not have control over how we are going to send the processes based on their CPU usage times or CPU bursts. So the first thing is called convoy effect. Here you can see the word convoy effect, and convoy effect is something where a large CPU burst process makes the smaller CPU burst processes wait to go into the CPU. So P1 in this picture has stopped these two small CPU burst processes for going into the CPU, and this has increased the waiting time for the whole system. This is drawback of using first come first serve. There can be a convoy effect if we don't do something about it, and if we are using the first come first serve or FCFS algorithm, we cannot really do anything about it. So the most obvious solution to this would be shortest job first. So whenever at any given time, like time t equal to 0, we have a number of processes and we want to send one of those to CPU, all we are going to do is that we're going to select the process with the smallest expected CPU burst time which is available to us. So this is a picture. These are all the CPU burst times and these are the names of the processes, and all of these processes have arrived in this order at time t equal to 0. but the expected CPU burst times are available to us. And which one is the smallest? Process P4 is expected to spend the least amount of time, which is 3 time units in CPU. So to us, this is the best process that should be selected as the candidate to go into CPU, because this is going to reduce the average waiting time for all the processes. So we are going to actually sort in ascending order all the processes. This will be sent first. This will be sent second because it has second smallest CPU burst time, process P1. Then we're going to select process P3 on the third number because it has the third smallest CPU burst time, and similarly then we are going to at number 4 select process P2 because it has the last or the biggest CPU burst time. So first one is P4, here we have P4, then on second P1, on third P3, on fourth P2. So this is all good, and now we see what are their time usage. P4, it went into the CPU at 0, spent 3 time units and came out of the CPU. Then we sent the second process P1. It had to spend 6 time units in CPU. Starting from 3, it took 6 time units, ended at 9. Similarly, the third process was P3. It started at time unit 9. It had to stay in the CPU for 7 time units. It ended at 9 plus 7 equal to 16. And similarly, the last one came, which is of 8 time units, P2. So 8 plus 16 is 24. So this all adds up, and the average waiting time for all these 4 processes is the waiting time for the first one, which is 0. The second actually process P4, the second one which went was P1, its waiting time was 3. The third one which was sent one was P3 and its waiting time was 9. And the fourth one which was sent was P2, it was sent at 16, its waiting time was 16. So here is 16. All of these waiting times added together divided by 4, we get the average waiting time, which is 7. So if you change the order to any other order, you're going to see that the average waiting time is always higher than 7. This is the best average waiting time you can get using shortest job first. So you can say that shortest job first is the best possible algorithm there is. But there is that little problem that we discussed, which is not as little as we were thinking, and that is that we cannot know the CPU bursts of all the processes in advance, because you may have written programs, you cannot tell when a program is going to go out of the CPU. It can want to stay into the CPU for as long as it wants. This is unpredictable. To predict it exactly, this is not possible. So what do? We make a guess. To make a guess, we use this equation. This equation is called determining the length of next CPU burst. This is the equation, tau n plus 1 equal to alpha small tn plus 1 minus alpha tau n. To explain this formula best is by this example. So these are all the guesses which were made. So the first guess that we will be making will be a wild guess. We are just going to take any number which we think is good, and then we are going to send that process to the CPU. For example, this process went into the CPU, it took 6 time units, right? So Ti becomes 6. So this formula simply says that take Tn, take the previous guess, multiply them to some factor which is related to each other. So for example, if I choose alpha to be 0.5, 1 minus alpha is also going to be 0.5. So multiply the measured time to 0.5, take the previous guess, multiply to 0.5, add them together, which you may have guessed by now is the average of the two, the guessed number and the actual measured time. So you are going to get the next guess. So this is exactly what is happening in this example. We took the guess, we sent the process to CPU, and we measured the time using a stopwatch or some mechanism. We got the time to be 6, and then we averaged them together to make the new guess. So the average of 10 and 6 is 8. Similarly, we noted down the guess for the next term, the next CPU burst, to be 8. And we simply blindly sent the process into the CPU, and we measured the time using stopwatch, and we saw that the process took 4 time units. So the average of these two is 6, which will be what? Our next guess. And you know what? The next time we send the CPU, the process to CPU, the process actually took 6 time units. So the guess and the measured time became same. This is just a chance. It can happen. It cannot happen. This is just a chance. So we make the next guess as 6 because the average of 6 and 6 is again 6. This graph shows us the measured times versus the predicted time, which is this blue line. So you can see that no matter how off the guess was from the actual time, eventually for some reason the measured time and the guess number became very close to each other. And even if the measured time went far away at some point, the guess is still trying to follow that measured time. So this graph shows us that average is a good formula to be used as a guessing mechanism for shortest job first. So these are all the numbers at any time instance. You can say, for example, for this process, whatever this process is, 5 is the guess. So in this table, you can simply insert, for example, there is another process, we can insert in front of it a 5 because the guess for that is 5. No matter how much it takes in the CPU, this is up to that process. So that means the results, the waiting times are going to be different in real time. So I hope you like this video. Subscribe for notifications and comment if you have any questions.